Oil futures track much higher as Trump promises to finish the job in Iran. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Crude is on the move. If one of the goals of U.S. President Donald Trump's speech last night was to calm the oil market, it hasn't worked. Oil prices are soaring today, well above $110 U.S. a barrel now, after Trump's televised address during which he insisted the United States is winning the war in Iran and vowed to finish the job.
In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them, terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before.
Trump would go on to say that his core objectives are nearing completion. He called the rise in gas prices short-term and blamed it on Iran.
Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation.
On the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, Trump encouraged countries that rely on Gulf oil to take the lead.
We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it.
Trump then revealed somewhat his plan for the next few weeks, vowing to bring Iran back to the Stone Age.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet, if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone.
Following Trump's speech came word that the UK is hosting a meeting today of representatives from more than 40 countries, including Canada, on developing a plan for the Strait of Hormuz. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand will join that meeting. When last we heard from her, she said the Carney government hadn't made any decisions about any role for Canada in securing the strait.
The supply chains that are being impacted, whether in terms of energy or fertilizer and other commercial products, is severe, and we need to make sure that we're doing whatever possible to reinforce the importance of the right of free passage. At this stage, no specific decisions have been taken. We remain in close contact with our allies and partners about their direct security needs, and we are prepared to support where Canadian capabilities can meaningfully contribute to civilian and maritime security.
As for relief from high gas prices, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre is the first Canadian politician to suggest a cut in gas taxes. Poilievre called on the Carney government today to suspend the federal excise tax and the GST on gasoline for the rest of the year. Poilievre claims drivers would save 25 cents a liter.
I'm calling on the government to suspend all fuel taxes for the rest of the year. A policy that would save 25 cents a liter, about $20 a fill-up, and $1,200 for the average family of four between now and the end of the year.
Just yesterday, the Australian government announced it is cutting gas taxes. The Prime Minister of Australia said drivers there would save about 28 cents a liter. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
He is my friend on the right side of things, Michael Taube. Is a columnist for the National Post, Loonie Politics, and Troy Media. He was a speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back, Michael.
Thanks very much, Rob. Hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, very good. I want to play you a couple of clips from the NDP convention wrapped up this weekend in Winnipeg, of course, the election of Avi Lewis as the new leader of the New Democrats. The first clip I'm going to play is the very popular Manitoba Premier, Wab Kinew. He's a New Democrat. Let's play the Wab Kinew clip, please.
And not a single Canadian should ever be put in harm's way to try and defend Donald Trump's foolish Iranian war. And I'll go a step further, and I'll say no American either. No American child from the blue collar or the middle class should have to die in Iran. Let the Epstein class fight the Epstein war.
Standing ovation. Let the Epstein class fight the Epstein war. Then later, during his victory speech, we heard from Avi Lewis. This was Avi Lewis.
When Israel commits a genocide in Gaza, we call it by its name, and we do everything in our power to bring it to an end.
So you have major Jewish groups in Canada, B'nai B'rith, CIJA, raising alarm bells about this stuff. Why do you think Canadian Jewish organizations are dismayed by what they're hearing from these leading lights of the NDP?
Well, I mean, they're frustrated in general. I mean, this is not a new phenomenon. Unfortunately, some are making it out to be, and I don't know why. The NDP has had a real problem with both anti-Semitism and Israel for quite a number of years. Now, this is not to say that every member of the New Democratic Party and every leader and every senior advisor has an issue with those two things. The problem is that the party as an umbrella does. And again, the proof is in the pudding. You look at statements that they've made about Israel and the fact that they've made a lot of offhand remarks and otherwise since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023. When you put all of that together, there's something clearly wrong. Now, this goes back further, and we don't have a ton of time to discuss it, but if you look at the history of the NDP, they used to be, when they were the old CCF, or even in their early years, they were defenders of Jews and of Israel. Or if they weren't, they were quiet about it. And they didn't erupt, they didn't cause an eruption or problems. And again, that was also because there were a lot of Jews who voted for the NDP and had senior positions. They still do. Avi Lewis, the current leader, is Jewish. I wouldn't say he's terribly religious, but he's Jewish. The difference is that Avi Lewis, much like his family, is what you would regard, and he's called it himself, anti-Zionist, which means that they have an issue with Israel and the way that it acts in certain ways. Doesn't mean they necessarily believe Israel shouldn't exist, but they are displeased with the Israeli government, and they obviously are displeased with the war in Iran. Now, the war in Iran is obviously a separate issue, which Wab Kinew and others can obviously weigh in on. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you start using lines that, that the Epstein class should fight Epstein, the Epstein war and things like that. While Jewish groups obviously are associated with anti-Semitism because Jeffrey Epstein was Jewish, that may not necessarily be the reason why it's being used. It's just a punchy line, and I would agree with that. Yeah, but he's
saying the Epstein class. Like, what does he mean by that, the Epstein class? What does that mean?
Likely what he means, because Kinew has been asked about it, the Epstein class, as he said it, was a whole group of wealthy people or powerful people around Jeffrey Epstein. And that can include Donald Trump. It could include others. For that reason, he basically lumped all these people together. The problem is that if you see it as coded language, it's kind of hard to avoid it because of the person that it's actually focusing on. If Wab Kinew had just simply come out and said that, that I don't agree with the war in Iran, that we shouldn't be fighting, this war, that it's terrible that people are being put in harm's way, you can argue the merits of it one way or the other, but at least that's a reasonable argument. When you start using slogans or code words or various other things that people will interpret it obviously as they see fit, Rob, it makes the whole discussion, or basically pushes it, in the wrong spot, and just leads a lot of people like me to believe that the NDP continues to have major issues when it comes to Jews, Israel, anti-Semitism, and otherwise. And the NDP is not making a good case that they're moving away from it.
Okay. When we return, going boldly, we will talk about Artemis 2 with Michael Taube, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, columnist with the National Post, Loonie Politics, Troy Media. When we return, I'm Rob Snow. This is News Media.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Michael Taube with us, as he is every Thursday, columnist with the National Post, Loonie Politics, Troy Media, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Did you watch the launch yesterday of Artemis 2?
I did indeed. Did you?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Kind of nerve-wracking at times. I do cross my fingers and hope everything goes okay, and it seemed to go off without a hitch. It was really quite remarkable. I was reading that it's the rocket and the boosters and everything at launch is 160 million horsepower, Michael.
Yeah, that's what I gathered too. I heard the same thing. I know it's a lot when you think about it. My God.
Oh man, strap yourself in. Here's my question for you, though. Here is my question.
Okay.
This mission is going to cost $100 billion.
Yeah.
The annual budget for the Canadian Space Agency is approaching $1 billion. The Carney government announced, I remember this, the Carney government announced Canada would make an investment in the European Space Agency of $500 million.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Is space travel, space exploration worth the money? Because some people might say, we hear this with foreign aid, for example. we have a lot of problems here at home: homelessness, drug addiction, housing affordability, retirement security. I mean, it could be a long list.
Right.
Do we should we be spending money sending people to the moon? Well, we have a lot of problems here on Earth. Why are we sending people to the moon? They're going around the moon. Yep, moon's still there. Okay, all right. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, that argument is used all the time. It's always, why are we spending on X when we can do spending on Y? I mean, that's very, very common. It's common for for any sort of government funding level, and it's not unusual to hear that argument. And I mean, obviously, there are certainly good points and bad points that could be made from it as well. At the same time, though, we have not invested a lot in space travel in decades because of obviously the disasters with the Challenger and other things. It just obviously set us off course to the point where a lot of developments that had happened from, the day that man walked on the moon in 1969, we basically went through a very long period where not much happened. Doesn't mean we weren't spending money on space, on the space missions, on basically investigating how we can deal with this. I mean, NASA obviously is an enormously expensive operation, but at the same time, I mean, obviously you have to be careful with your financing. I still think, though, in the end, Rob, you have to push forward on this, and there are benefits to it. If this mission goes successfully, for example, there's talk in a few years, possibly, of actually having permanent residency on the moon, going to Mars, and doing other things that can obviously help society, help the planet. And for those who are worried about overpopulation and otherwise, this is a benefit. So it's an enormous amount of money. Sure, it could do good on Earth. No one's questioning it, but it could do even greater good if we're able to use it and develop it and move further in the cosmos. So you could look at it that way.
Yeah. It's inspiring, too. Like, it's inspiring to know that Canadian Jeremy Hansen is going, farther into space than any other human being before. Like, that's cool.
It is. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you and I and most of the listeners will never experience in our lives.
Oh, never. No.
But it's exciting for them. And it should be exciting not only for our country and obviously for the United States, of which the mission is primarily based around, but for everyone around the world, because there's great benefits that can happen from it. And that's what they pushed in 1969. And for many, many years, that was sort of the model we followed. How exciting it is. What are we going to discover? Because we're not just centered on Earth. This is not the only planet in the universe. There's more to discover. And we should keep pressing forward because in the end, ultimately, we may need to one day, but we should always want to.
Thank you so much. Have a
My
happy,
pleasure.
Blessed Easter, Passover, Michael. Thank you. And we'll speak soon.
Happy Easter to you and your family. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Michael Taube, columnist with the National Post, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Our Newsday panel, Focus Nova Scotia. So much to talk about, from provincial matters to the budget passing in the Halifax Regional Municipality. A big, big property tax increase, 9.5%. That's coming up.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, it's time for our Thursday Newsday panel. One of my favorites, Focus Nova Scotia. And two of my favorites, Clinton Desveaux, columnist, political commentator. Welcome back, Clinton Desveaux. Good to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Appreciate that.
And Lisa Blackburn, former Halifax City Councillor, NDP candidate. How are you, Lisa Blackburn? Welcome back.
Thank you so much. Always great to be here with you.
Well, you have a new budget, and it comes with a big whopping tax increase of 9.5%. The mayor voted against the budget. What do you think, Lisa? Let's start with you. What's your reaction, how the budget debate played out?
Mm-hmm.
The HRM.
Yeah, and this is a process that I have been involved with 9 times as a councillor, because there was one bonus year where we had to go through the process twice because of COVID. The process is just, it's abysmal. It's really just it's getting into the weeds. It's going through it line by line. And it does, to the public, it does seem messy, but it's out in, it's done completely in the public eye. So I think, they're seeing how the sausage is made. I think this really is a necessary but painful budget. $1.45 billion for the operating budget. Average bill is going to go up about $284 a year. And you're right, 14-3 was the vote, and the mayor voted against it. But, the municipality really has few ways that they can raise money. It's either, user fees or taxes. That's it. There are not a lot of options. And what's driving this increase is a lot of growth pressure. There's a pressure for transit to expand. Pressures on emergency services, more firefighters and equipment, that sort of thing. And, just basically trying to catch up with growth that Halifax arguably didn't plan fast enough for. So, there is definitely a divide on council about this budget. But, for the most part, it was something that really, it's, affordability today versus investment for tomorrow. It's not a clean win for anybody, really. It's really a reluctant compromise, I think.
Okay. So, it's not the bigger number that we saw at the outset, which I think was closer to 11.5%. They whittled it down to 9.5%. Well, what do you make of it, Clinton?
Well, it's pretty easy for the mayor to vote against a budget that has a tax increase when the mayor knows that the budget is going to pass. And it's in some ways, I would argue that it's probably makes him smile, because he probably favors the tax increase but didn't want to have to carry the political baggage of it. So now he gets the best of both worlds.
What I want to explore with your help a little bit here, Clinton, is what is your sense of this budget? Okay, 9.5% property tax increase, among the highest of any major city in Canada at 9.5%. What are you getting for this 9.5% property tax increase? Are you getting gold-plated public services? Are you getting better roads? Are you getting better water and sewer infrastructure? Are you getting better public transit? Are you getting more recreational programs or new recreational facilities? Are you getting gold-plated public services? Or is this kind of you're just treading water? Like, you have to raise property taxes 9.5% just to kind of tread water. What's your sense of it, Clinton?
Yeah, so I think what we're getting for a 9.5% tax increase is we're not getting an 11 or 12 or 13% tax increase. And so this is why I was saying that, the mayor gets to have his cake and eat it too. And obviously, there is a push for additional services. I understand that. Halifax has shown tremendous population growth. But, to your point, like, we're not getting anything particularly special. And yeah, I would argue that that basically this treads water. And the reason it treads water is because I would say for the last 20 years that the city has not really gotten a hold of its finances, because every year they come back with these huge numbers, of wanting increases, to the point now where in the initial discussions and planning processes, everyone sort of pushes for double-digit increases. And then they turn around and say, hey, look, you're not getting a double-digit increase. We're giving you 9.5, as if somehow or another that's meant to make us feel good. So there's a lot of money being wasted, I would argue. And okay. I would argue that there are services that the city is involved in that maybe they should not be in. And we're obviously, we obviously have a spending problem and a revenue problem. And so it's easy to ignore the spending problem if your solution is always to find additional revenue.
Lisa, is this a gold-plated public services budget, or is this a treading water budget?
This is a catching up budget.
Catching up.
I would suggest that councils over the last 20 years have kept the tax rate artificially low. But, to add on to what Clinton was saying, it's also a process problem, because part of the issue is that the entire budget process has to begin before all of the information is known. So the staff start the budget process back in the fall, September, October, and then in the winter months, as January, February ramp up, that's when they get a clearer picture of what the budget is going to look like. But a huge part of that information piece that's missing is the deed transfer tax, which is an amount of money that sometimes flows back to HRM based on the amount of properties sold, and what that deed transfer tax amount is really isn't known to either the budget drafters or council until March, until well into that budget process. So, I think that's another reason why initially we're slapped with, oh my heavens, 12% tax increase, and then by the time the process is done, it's whittled down to 9.5%.
Okay. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to what's been happening at the provincial legislature. They're not letting anyone in. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
I'm here with Clinton Desveaux and Lisa Blackburn for Focus Nova Scotia today. All right, let's talk about what's been happening at Province House, the provincial legislature in Nova Scotia. There was supposed to be a budget vote. There were people in the gallery, and they started singing, and matters needed to be adjourned. They had the final budget vote the next day, and nobody's been allowed back in. No member of the public's been allowed back in to the provincial legislature since March 25th. Security concerns being cited by the Speaker. Clinton, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree with the Speaker in this case. And for the record, I'm somebody who does believe that people should have a right to have their voices heard and, to demonstrate and to protest, as long as it's done in a peaceful manner. Having said that, you're not able to just interrupt the business proceedings in the legislature because, the various parties and the various MLAs are voting on the budgets and making, changes to what's occurring. And so I do think that there has to be some form of decorum. I mean, we just can't have it turn into a zoo. And so I thought it was the right call. I know that's going to make me unpopular, but I do think it was the right call.
Okay. Lisa, what do you think?
Well, closed for a few days is one thing, but closed until further notice is something completely different. And the longer that this goes on, it feels more like restriction and less like precaution. And, I get it. If this is a security and a safety issue, then absolutely they need better tools before they can reopen. But, the delay in reopening apparently is because officials are still trying to determine who's who from the protest. They want to be able to identify them so specific protesters can be, banned and kept out of there permanently. And they also want to.
Well, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? An investigation is underway into determining a who's who. Come up with a who's who list from the protest.
Yeah, that
word comes to mind is blacklist. Blacklist. Are they coming up with a blacklist? People are blacklisted.
That's certainly sounding more and more like the scenario. I mean, the legislature is a symbol of public access to democracy, and even a justified closure can look like overreach if it's not clearly explained. And there hasn't been a lot of explanation, and I agree with Clinton. This is definitely a place where business is taking place, and you definitely have to maintain your decorum while you're in there. There are rules, and if you cannot abide by those rules, then you should be asked to leave. But it's a fine line. between banning a group that causes disruption and shutting down access for everybody. And that's where the tension is coming from now.
So, I mean, Clinton, if we're all together next week or the week after and Province House is still closed, what would you think?
Well, I mean, obviously I would have some issues then, especially if there's not some sort of indication or communication as to how long it's going to be closed for and the reasons why it's closed. But I just circle back to my earlier point. It's fine to have, people there to express their displeasure. That's one thing. It's quite another thing when you have a significant group of individuals whose only intent is to actually shut down the work of the legislature. And so, that's where it becomes problematic. And so, look, I do think that the premier in this case, Tim Houston, and the government, and quite frankly, I think the opposition parties should also be speaking out and saying, listen, we support, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, but it has to be done in a way that's not going to, create a problem for the legislature as a whole. And so, look, I think that we need cooler heads to prevail, and we need adults to be making decisions.
All right. We'll be right back. We will talk about municipal amalgamation. I've been through that a few times, municipal amalgamations. 30th anniversary of amalgamation in Nova Scotia for HRM and for the CBRM. Let's not forget about the Cape Bretoners, okay? Cape Breton Regional Municipality as well. Talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
You have questions?
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Clinton Desveaux and Lisa Blackburn are here for Focus Nova Scotia. By the way, happy 71st anniversary to the Angus L. MacDonald Bridge, the old bridge. They still call it that, the old bridge? The locals in Halifax?
Yes, they do.
They sure do. They do
They
it.
sure do.
Even though the new bridge was...
Saturday night.
the new bridge was built in 1970. That's the new bridge.
Yeah. The new bridge isn't that new anymore, Rob.
No, the new bridge is not that new anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Opened today in 1955, April 2nd of 1955. Okay, let's talk about amalgamation, 30th anniversary of the creation of the Halifax Regional Municipality and the Cape Breton Regional Municipality, for that matter. Lisa, what have been the positives and negatives, in your opinion, of amalgamation?
Well, and certainly that shotgun marriage of 1996 solved some problems, but created new ones that we still grapple with. I mean, on the plus side, yes, we now have one voice on big infrastructure programs, transit, economic development, and that in turn has led to a stronger national profile, I think, for Halifax as an entity. Certainly it reduced duplication. There's fewer overlapping bureaucracies because it took 4 municipalities and merged them into one. But, the negatives have been a loss of local identity and voice, I think. Communities certainly feel distant from the decision-making. There's a definite urban-rural tension because those communities have different needs, but there's only one tax base. So there's that challenge of the one-size-fits-all governance.
Clinton, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to take a slightly different tack from Lisa. So what I would say is that it's been of a big benefit culturally for Halifax. I think people of Halifax, Dartmouth, Bedford, Sackville specifically, they sort of view themselves as Haligonians, or they view Halifax as a single city. I think when it comes to the Cape Breton Regional Municipality, however, that culturally that has not worked at all. I think if you talk to someone from Glace Bay and someone from North Sydney, that they don't see any sort of commonality at all. They view themselves as completely distinct, separate communities. And I do agree with Lisa, though, that there's been a huge help when it comes to reducing the overall bureaucracy and the overlap. That's obviously been from a business perspective, that there's a benefit there. But I think culturally it's left Halifax a stronger place that's more bold, that's more assured of itself and its future.
Yeah. I was home during the summer of 1996. I was going to university at the time in Ottawa, and I was home in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality when they were preparing for amalgamation. And I'll say that Clinton is onto something. I was mostly hanging out in Sydney Mines by those days, and I was like, "We're Sydney Mines, like we're with Glace Bay now. Like, are you kidding me? Like that, or we're with Nuwata. We're all one big thing now." But the cool thing that they did though was they told, because it was all separate municipalities at the time, they said whatever is in your budget at the end of the year, you can spend it whatever way you want. And in Sydney Mines, they had a big party. And at the Brown Street ball field, I was there. Giant beer tent. Bruce Guthrow performed. And the special guest of the night, and he brought the house down, was the late John Allen Cameron, who absolutely lit the place on fire, playing his fiddle and playing his guitar, all while wearing a Devco uniform. And the overalls, the Devco overalls. I'll never forget that. It was one of the best summer nights of my life. And then after the show was over, he stuck around and he had beers with the locals. And gosh, he was just one of the greatest Cape Bretoners who ever lived. God bless John Allen Cameron. Look, thank you, everybody. Brought back a lot of memories when it was the 30th anniversary of amalgamation. Really appreciate the conversation today. We'll do it again soon.
You too. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Clinton,
enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, you too, Clinton. Thank you. Clinton Desveaux, columnist, political commentator. Lisa Blackburn, former Halifax city councillor, NDP candidate. And Talkback is coming up next. It's a free-for-all today. It's our last Talkback of this week. It's a shortened week for us because tomorrow's Good Friday. So it's kind of a faux Friday free-for-all. So you can call right now with the topic. I'll put you right on the air. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we're wide open. It's I call it the faux Friday free-for-all. We're not here tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, Good Friday. And no show on Monday as well. I'm taking Monday off. So this is our last chance to have at each other for a few days. So we're going to do a free-for-all. We would normally do the free-for-all tomorrow, of course, but we're going to do it today instead. So all the phone lines are open right now. And the number to call, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. You pick a topic, and we will do our best to follow along. We have some topics that we can throw into the mix, but simply consider them conversation starters, and we'll get to them later because some people have called in already. Harvey is out in Calgary today. Hello, Harvey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Harvey. Our weather's better than yours today, so, we're doing okay.
Yeah, it's kind of blustery here, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, what I want
up?
to talk about, I didn't get in yesterday. I think it was yesterday, pretty hot topic on the old age security clawback that they're talking about doing here in Alberta. One thing about that I was kind of chuckling about was, we get $782 for a month for the old age security here, and if they're going to claw back to $100,000 or whatever it is, they get $185,000 on it. Is our taxes not paying for that OAS already? Like, if you get $700.
Well, you are. Yeah, of course. It's OAS is entirely funded out of what I would call the general revenues. It's not like the CPP where they take a contribution from everybody every month and they invest it into the stock market and get returns. OAS comes right out of general revenues. So there are questions that, the costs keep going up every year. They're going to go up to $94 billion from less than $50 billion by the end of this decade. And so there are questions like, can we afford this? Should we be, the question that we were asking earlier in the week is, should seniors who have a combined household income of $185,000 get any money in OAS? What are you saying?
Well, if you're making $185,000, you're paying 38% tax. Does that not cover your old age pension? And besides that, they're taking tax off your old age pension as well. So really, you're saying that $80 million or whatever, you're already covering it with your own wage.
But do you need the money? If you're having that kind of household income and you're a senior and your home is probably paid for, do you really need old age security? Because it sounds like you're pretty secure already.
Well, yes, but that's by investing and by working hard. So you take that away from me, what's the point of doing that? Let's just sit back and get CPP and OAS and not even worry about working.
Okay. Just there are those who are making the case. Even Professor Ian Lee, who's with me every week, says, yeah, it's ridiculous that people who are earning that kind of income in their old age are still getting old age security in addition to their CPP. Says it should be clawed back 100% by the time you hit that level.
Well, it pretty well is with the tax on it. So it pretty well is clawed back. But that's what I mean. They're saying it's an over and above account. And I just don't see it that way. But that's just what I was thinking anyway.
Yeah, no, fair enough, Harvey. It was, it was a hot debate. Certainly when we had it earlier in the week, not a lot of seniors were going for it. I can appreciate that. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. As you just heard, our phone lines are open, wide open on topics today. Let's go back to Halifax, Nova Scotia. Joe is in Halifax today. Hello, Joe. Dave in Halifax. Okay, my apologies. My bad. Dave?
Yes, Rob.
Yes.
I'd like to talk about
Hi,
the war. Of course, Trump's, talk about the war, if I may.
Go right ahead. Sure.
Trump's speech last night. And are we any closer to knowing what's going to happen over there? I don't know. I don't think he wants to play his cards, quite frankly. Does he owe us some answers, us as Canada and the world? I suppose so. But he doesn't want to show his hand. I think we must remind the folks that Iran provides tens of millions of dollars to terrorist groups such as Hamas, Hezbollah. All have been menacing groups of terrorist activity.
Of course.
As we know, October 7th. Remember that day, folks. Not only did they slaughter people and invade Israel from the sea and the land, and highly orchestrated, by the way, financed by Iran, and took hostages. Let's not forget that. They had 240 hostages. Honestly, Rob, I don't remember how many recovered or survived, but it took negotiations on behalf of Trump to get them out of there. Bodies recovered and whatever.
Some of those hostages were Canadian. I interviewed I interviewed the family member of a woman who was taken hostage, and eventually they murdered her. They never saw her again. Excruciating.
Terrible. So does it justify leveling the Gaza Strip? I don't know. I don't make those decisions. But when that happened, let's face it, this is when all hell broke loose. Let's not also, if I may, Rob, Iran provides Russia with Shahed drones, and they're kamikaze drones that are used to battle Ukraine, and also military and technical advice. This is what they have been doing. Iran basically is a menace to the Middle East and has been for a long time. I'm at the point where we have to decide, folks. One has to decide if Iran was to obtain a nuclear warhead. And I think we all would probably, most of us on all sides, would agree that they were heading in that direction, right? It wasn't for nuclear power. They have plenty of energy. They don't have water, but because the government there, whatever the regime, radical regime that is no longer, I don't think, what would they have done with that? Obama administration gave them billions of dollars, right, to go in and take a look what, and we never did get inspectors in there. So we have to decide, folks, if Islam, the radical regime of Islam, obtained a nuclear warhead, death to America, death to Israel, death to the West, we have to decide, are we the infidels? Would they have been so radical to use a nuke? That's where I have to decide. That's where I have to draw the line.
You also have to question. You do have to question the premise of the war. Mr. Trump is declaring it was an imminent threat. Was it an imminent threat? Is there evidence that there was an imminent threat?
That's where we have to decide.
From the nuclear weapons program in Iran.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely,
I'll be very curious to see what happens in the coming days. It might be a very interesting weekend. And I mean, I'm looking at the oil price today. We should talk about that as well. Gas prices. I want to get into that with you today. I mean, oil prices are up 60% in a month. Oil is sitting right now at $111 a barrel. $1.85 a liter for gas in these parts. I was talking to my wife who's in Charlottetown right now. $1.94 in Charlottetown PEI for gas. $1.94. $2 a liter in BC, in many places in Quebec. Mr. Poilievre said today you should suspend all gas taxes for the rest of the year. Challenge the Liberals to do that. What do you think about that? Let's get into that as well when we come back. But it's a free-for-all today, so you can take it in whatever direction you want to. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Talkback. Wide open on topics today. Join the discussion. Start one of your own. Comment on anything that we've commented on this week, as Harvey did right off the outset. Let's go to Daryl right now. Hello, Daryl.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Quite welcome.
Rob, I would like to get a little bit of clarity from you regarding how the East is feeling about what is happening out here in Alberta regarding our referendum. I've talked to people, and it seems that nobody down East really seems to think this is any big deal. How do you feel?
Oh, I'm taking it seriously. I'll be curious to see how it all turns out and how accurate these polls are at the end of the day. If the referendum ever comes to pass, I would say, I think this is a sentiment. I think most people agree that Alberta hasn't been treated very well in the last 10 years. Maybe they don't understand and appreciate what's been happening, say, since the National Energy Program of 1980 under the first Trudeau. But I think most people, this would be my own sense of it, I think most people recognize that the policies of the last 10 years of the Trudeau/Guilbeault government were misguided, and that Alberta had every right to be frustrated. As for the impressions of, say, the Alberta Prosperity Project or whatever other name it's going by, Keep Alberta Free or Stay Free Alberta or whatever it's called, I think there are feelings of unease that a lot of these people seem to be very close to Trump and MAGA, and that they align themselves with Trump and MAGA. I think there's a concern there. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's interesting. As far as an alignment with Trump, no. This whole thing with, we're going to become the 51st state and all this nonsense, that's not really what this is all about. I believe this is really about a new agreement with Ottawa, as Daniel Smith keeps mentioning, a sovereign agreement similar to what Quebec has. Quebec has a very unique place in Canada. They have agreement with Ottawa that no other province has. And I think we're kind of out here looking at this going, hey guys, we want to work. We want to create prosperity for this nation. For God's sakes, take the handcuffs off and let us work. And quite frankly, Mark Carney certainly doesn't seem to be rushing into that. He has missed the April 1st deadline on the MOU that he signed with Daniel Smith. And quite frankly, I'm sure you'll agree, that's really not playing terribly well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that. And the Premier doesn't seem too surprised by it, though. I mean, the Premier is more or less pleading for patience, I think, right now.
That's correct. That's correct. And, every time I turn around, some of my friends who still live in the East, by the way, I've lived across Canada, say, well, she's a separatist, she's this, she's that. How many times does that woman have to say that she believes in a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada before people stop all this fear-mongering?
Okay.
You know, it's kind of getting out of hand. And I really wish Eastern Canada would take this a little bit more seriously. Anyways, that's my point.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Daryl.
My call.
All right. So we've cleared the phone lines. Very quiet so far to start the Thursday Talkback. Is anything on your mind? You let us know. We'll introduce some topics as we make our way through the program. But if you want to have your say on any topic, we'd love to hear from you. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And have at us. Okay? This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go back to Halifax. Brad is in Halifax. First-time caller. Hello, Brad.
How are you today?
Yeah, very good, Brad. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, listen, I heard the last caller, and the last thing that he led off with or ended with was, you know, the people in Eastern Canada should take us seriously or take it seriously about what's happening out in Alberta. And my first question, or rhetorical as it is what doesn't he think we are taking seriously? Does he think we're just down here laughing at everybody and thinking that, you know, Alberta is the laughingstock of Canada? It's just not true. And I guess I don't understand. What does he want Eastern Canada to do for Alberta that would make everything so much better? They talk about a sovereign Alberta. And as we know, one of the reasons that Quebec has always sought to be a sovereign nation in Canada or outside of Canada is basically two things: language and culture. Well, I commuted out to Calgary for about 7 years for work every couple of weeks, not in the oil industry. And I didn't see a culture that was that different from anything that I knew from Eastern Canada. They spoke the same language. So that really sort of gets me.
Well, I put this question many months ago now, to callers in Alberta. Is the culture in Alberta different than it is in the rest of Canada? And what I got back was, we're more independent minded. We don't want the government in our business. We're more individualistic, something like that. Did you get a sense of that?
Never. I would say that most of their industries are highly regulated by government, whether it is the oil and gas industry, and one that I'm more familiar with is the airline industry. And, you know, WestJet owned, you know, was started in Calgary. I don't know what they think is going to happen with that huge employer and that huge investment when they become their own quote unquote country, because as we know, a carrier from a foreign country to Canada can only fly to and from. They cannot fly in between. So WestJet no longer is flying from Calgary to Toronto, and then you're going to turn that aircraft to go Toronto to St. John's, and then overnight it's going to go back out to Calgary. That's not going to happen anymore, except that WestJet would most likely put their headquarters in Vancouver and start from there, because then they can do that. Alberta will lose industries that are federally regulated because it is easier for them to move their headquarters than it is to try and get regulated for other countries. It's not a win-win situation for anybody.
No.
Look,
Sure.
I get what people are saying. You know, they didn't like it out there in Alberta when the Liberal government stopped pension splitting and things like that. There is money out there. There's no doubt. But as somebody from Atlantic Canada who sees the people coming back from the oil and gas industry in the summer, do you know what I see?
What do you see?
$120,000 trucks with a $30,000 ute on the back of it coming back. And by the end of the summer, running out of money and hightailing it back to Alberta to make money again. So, it's not the panacea that people think it is. And surely, if you take away the ability from Canadian, and I'm using air quotes, workers from Atlantic Canada, other places, to go to Alberta to work in their oil fields and other types of industries, they're going to have a hard time filling those positions, because there's a reason why there are more Atlantic Canadians working in some of those camps than Albertans.
Okay, sir. Great rant. Thank you, Brad. There you go. Good. 1-833-668-2577. You maybe want to react to that if you are so inclined. It's wide open. Faux Friday free-for-all on a Thursday. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Right back to Halifax. Chris is in Halifax today. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Rob. How are you, bud?
Oh, very good, Chris. Thank you.
That's good. Okay.
What's on your mind?
Wow. Well, I lived in Alberta. Calgary, Edmonton. So, are you an Oilers or a Flames fan?
Well, I'm originally I'm from Cape Breton Island. I live in Quebec. I do this show from my home studio in Quebec, and it all operates technically out of Calgary.
You're from Cape Breton?
I am indeed, yes.
Really? The Rinkins, Manglewood, there's some good acts down there.
Oh, sure. The Barons,
let's get to the point of the story. I want to talk back today about what Daryl said about East Coast people. And I totally agree with
I think
Brett.
if I could, I think Daryl just wanted to know, what are people out east thinking about Alberta separation? I don't think he was slamming people from Atlantic Canada.
Has he ever been here?
I don't think he meant to slam people from Eastern Canada.
You know what? I moved to Alberta when I was 18 years old. I worked on the rigs, and I loved Alberta. It's lots of money can be made there, like Fort McMoney. And I worked on the old rigs, and I love the Oilers. I love the Flames too. And the only reason why the Flames won the cup is because they had Al McGuinness, which is from your neck of the woods.
Sure thing.
He's from
Port
Cape
Hood.
Breton.
Yeah, he is from Cape Breton.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. But anyways, that Daryl guy, he's probably never been here, Rob. And, he doesn't know the hospitality that we do and everything, like Newfoundlanders, Maritimers. And, you know what? He should look in the mirror, Rob. Maybe his neck is red.
Okay, but let me no. Let's look. Let's not make it personal. Okay, let's not get personal with each other here. All right, Chris.
Personal.
All right, Chris. Just let me ask you this question: do you think the government in Ottawa has been good to Alberta over the last, say, 10 years?
You know what? I think Daniel Smith is doing a hell of a job.
All right, let me ask you again. I'm not talking about Daniel Smith. Do you think Justin Trudeau, Stephen Guilbeault, the Liberals, were they being good to Alberta, or were they trying to damage Alberta?
No, you're right.
Because where do you think this frustration comes from that we hear every day on this show?
The thing is, though, Rob, it's not the East Coast fault. Like that
Daryl the East Coast
guy,
fault.
He was blaming the East Coast.
Well,
that was pretty lame.
Okay, I don't think he was blaming. I think he just wanted to know. And if you look like all the way from Cape North to Yarmouth, it's Liberals from one end of the province to the other where you live.
You're right.
Okay, every single riding in your province is represented by a Liberal MP sent to Ottawa, and a lot of them were there for 10 years, backing Trudeau while he was canceling pipelines. Right? He was canceling pipelines. He was putting West Coast tanker bans. He was putting in emissions caps, all to hamper that industry. And now look, Could we not use more oil and gas right now? Oil is at $111 a barrel right now. What are you paying for gas down there?
No, $2.
Yeah.
Like, frig, it used to be like, I remember I lived in Toronto, it was like 60 cents. And now it's $2.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Look.
Yeah, and you know who I really love though, Rob, is Kearney.
Who's that? You love Kearney, okay.
Kearney is doing really well. He's standing up to Trump, eh? Oh yeah.
How is he? Okay. All right, Chris. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. We've shared enough. Let's move along. Let's go back to Calgary again. Oh my gosh. Am I going to play referee between people in two parts of the country here today? Keith, up next. Hello, Keith.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Keith. What's on your mind?
So, to weigh in on the whole separation thing here, it's become a bit of a comedy show so far. So to address one of the issues, personally, I don't think the people in the East, the guys on the ground, like your last caller there, actually, pay a whole lot of attention. I think people in Alberta think a whole lot more about the East than they think about us. So that's for a start. For another, the whole separatist thing is driven, I think, in large part by a whole lot of misinformation and misunderstandings. So I'll agree 100% that the Trudeau and Carney governments are absolutely atrocious as far as trying to help development and stuff in Alberta and all the rest of the net zero nonsense and all that. Great hindrance to the prosperity and everything. That being said, the provincial government is responsible for most of the things that the separatists are actually complaining about and the misunderstandings that people have. And a lot of that comes from the provincial government. For an example, a massive percentage of Albertans seem to have this impression that Alberta is funding the entirety of the equalization program. Like Jeff Rath, the leader, he'll go on TV and say that Alberta sends $15 billion to Quebec every year. Well, you and I both know that's not at all what happens, not at all how it works. Equalization could end tomorrow and not a thing would change for a single Albertan, nothing. The only thing that would be different would be the federal government spent $15 billion somewhere else, whatever that may be, however inane or useful or whatever. But the point being is Alberta wouldn't see a dime of it, and there's no reason to think that they would. So that's a huge portion of the animosity towards the East. Now, we have a premier who has done a spectacular job of rage farming hate against Quebec and the East and the federal government on every level, true and untrue, misinformed and exaggerated and cherry-picked numbers to inflate this whole animosity. I'm not sure. Rage farm maybe against the Liberals in Ottawa, against Quebec. I don't think so. Not so much. What I have heard, and I've interviewed her a few times now, and I've asked her about this. She seems to have, if anything, kind of an admiration for how Quebec has managed to have its own police force and its own pension plan and control over its own immigration and these sorts of things, and how it's been able to certainly leverage the threat of secession to make so many of these gains over the years from Ottawa. I don't think she rage farms against Quebec. I think she just wants what Quebec has already for her province. But thank you. 1-833-668-2577, and all of a sudden it's a hot one on Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Guelph, Ontario. Gus is on the line. Hello, Gus. What's on your mind today?
Hello, how are you?
Gus? Very good, Gus. What's on your mind?
Well, your last comment before the break sort of hit the nail on the head.
where you said Alberta's looking at what Quebec did. And to me, Alberta's not going anywhere. And if I could vote yes in this referendum, I would too. Because knowing they're just going to go and say, all right, we're ready to get out. What are you going to end up giving us? This is what you gave the other people. We want similar or better. And this is just another political tactic from either side of the aisle to get what you want. You can't do it legislatively because you don't have the power. The rules that Trudeau put in and that Carney helped Trudeau put in is now executing regarding emissions and everything else, have basically told Alberta, shut down, we don't want you. The only problem with the GDP that's growing in the last 6 months is Alberta. Everybody else is stagnant. Here in Ontario, you can look at construction. The only building going on is from a government. And when government starts spending all the money in infrastructure, whatever, that's not their money. That's your money that they're throwing away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that you're so right there. I mean, there's a reason the Prime Minister was in Etobicoke with Doug Ford and Olivia Chow and announcing an $8.8 billion package for housing. Like, that's how bad the housing market is right now, especially in Toronto.
Well, it's not just Toronto. It's all over the place. But the thing is, they're not going to fix it with 10, 12, or $20 billion. They don't have the resources to do it. They can spend the money, but it's not going to go to where you think it's going to go. 90% of that is going to go to administrative costs through the bureaucracy up and down the chain. And until whichever government gets into power the next 2-3 generations, and I say generations, because until you clean house in Ottawa, all the policies that were brainwashed into the civil servants, they will backstab anybody coming and going until they get what's been mandated to them.
But you think, it sounds like you think Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is playing it pretty well here.
I think she's doing an excellent job.
Okay.
Well, let's look at what René Lévesque did when you had what? You had Mulroney as the Prime Minister. You had Jean Charest and everybody else running around trying to kiss his butt to give him what he wants so he wouldn't leave. Well, look where they are. I would do, if I was in Alberta's shoes, I would do the exact same thing. I would turn it up a notch. I would turn down my outputs in manufacturing. Like, turn them down. You want net zero? We'll shut it down today. You start paying everybody in unemployment as of today.
Okay. Like turn off the oil production, you mean? You mean turn off the oil production?
Correct. Turn it off.
Oh,
you want net zero?
Like
there it is. I defy anybody to sit in a net zero carbon box and survive.
All right. Thank you, Gus. Thank you. To North Battleford, Saskatchewan. Orville, good to hear from you again, Orville.
Hi. Well, I'm waiting here. Quite a few different callers on the line here, but I'm just, to get started here. There was a comment earlier about the gas tax being removed across Canada. Like, what kind of a deficit would that add to this country? And it would add. You want to know under Mr. Poilievre's proposal today, suspend all fuel taxes, federal fuel taxes, between now and the end of the year, $5.25 billion. Yeah, and was Mr. Poilievre promoting less deficits? So this way, he's promoting more deficit. Well, he also outlined where he would offset, like he had proposed offsets, right? Yes, we know it's going to cost $5.2 billion, and here's where we think we could find savings of $5.25 billion, and it wouldn't be that hard. Yeah, no, sometimes when you do a federal tax break, it's connected to if the provinces follow suit too. Yes. I'm not saying that would happen, but that's kind of been something that's happened in the past. Yeah. Okay. Well, you did okay. You did great there. And something else, there was carbon capture was mentioned. Now, carbon capture is not brand new. Stephen Harper was involved with carbon capture in Saskatchewan with some programs. It seems to me it's growing bigger and bigger with more popularity. Yeah. Is that kind of how you see it, or? Well, it's the way the Prime Minister spins it, and I don't know, Premier Smith said she didn't used to believe it in, but she's more convinced now that it can be done at scale, because it's never been done at the kind of scale that they're proposing with this Pathways project. They're not going to have a pipeline unless they do this carbon capture and storage Pathways project. Yeah. And okay, and then the last Carney's been prime minister for a year now, and that's totally changed how government is happening in this country. And the member of understanding with Daniel Smith is great. Before that, Trudeau, there was quite a bit of resistance towards energy development. So,
sure,
definitely, the Carney government, Carney prime minister is a huge improvement for business development across Canada.
Okay, thank you. Orville, got to run. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Back to Calgary we go. Dean is in Calgary. Hello, Dean.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing? I love
Dean.
your show.
Yeah.
I'm a first-time caller, and some good talk going on today. Like the gas prices, I know right now we're probably 50 cents a liter or whatever higher than we were before the Iran war started. To be honest, that's my least of my worries. Is anybody looking at what their retirement savings plan has done because of this needless war? Like, for example, I'm down something like $80,000 in my portfolio since the war started. And every time Donald, I'll pick on Donald here because of what's happening. Every time Donald says the tariffs a year ago were going to come in, the markets drop. Yeah, they gain back up to where you were before he made that comment. Then he says we're going to go to Venezuela and do the thing there. Markets drop again. Then they come back up again. And then now the Iran war. I've never seen a president or a prime minister or anybody who would flip-flop day to day on something. Like whether you're going to put a carbon tax in, it's a thought process. Whether people like it or not, it's done, and it stays there for 5 years, 6 years, and maybe gets changed. Donald changes daily, and the only thing that I can think of is it is probably supporting his people who know when to go in and buy low to watch it raise the next day and make a whole bunch of money to ever back low the next week. That frustrates the heck out of me. Like, do people know where their investments are going right now, or are we in such a situation in Canada where nobody has a lot of money and they're not even worried about it because they have no investments? It's a scary thing for me.
Right. But you think there might be some like market manipulation here, right?
Well, yes, I do. I mean, I have no proof of that, obviously, but nobody flip-flops running a government like that where they say a big thing that hits the markets hard on a Tuesday. And then Wednesday says, I talked to the guys from China. It's not that bad. And all of a sudden the markets gallop. And then the next day he reverses, or a week later he reverses. There's money to be made on the markets if you know when to get in. It seems strange changing it that frequently.
Like I mentioned yesterday, there was this report in the Telegraph paper out of the UK, and the Democrats in Washington say they're going to investigate this, that a broker who has ties to Pete Hegseth bought or tried to buy like millions and millions of dollars worth of BlackRock defense funds.
Yes.
And it was like 2 days before the war started.
Yeah, apparently somebody who owns resort property around Mar-a-Lago, who would know Trump, has suddenly got in and has bought a whole bunch of defense stocks. And I think the people that are backing him are actually, I think, Trump's son-in-law or whatever. They have some interest in some of these banks that are funding this. I don't know if that's just fake news or whatever, but I really have a feel that there's corruption on why this flip-flopping is happening, because I don't need to take my money out right now. But if I was living on my retirement and I had to pull out low right now, I don't have time for recovery. And it seems with Donald, he flip-flops over and over, and just when you make money, you lose money. It just seems artificially. It's not a drought or something or whatever that might cause the markets to go down or whatever it might be, right? And I just wondering if people are really looking at their RSPs and the like.
Their portfolio, yeah. I was just looking here. In the last month, the TSX the main index in Toronto is down about 5%, all between 4 and 5% in the last month.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback Faux Friday Free for All. We're off tomorrow. Tomorrow's Good Friday. Have a blessed Easter, everyone. So we're away tomorrow and Monday. No talk back tomorrow or Monday, back on Tuesday. So we're doing wide open today, wide open. Like, pick a topic, we'll roll with it. The situation in Alberta with the separatist cause, the independence movement in Alberta saying we've collected enough signatures, it'll have to be reviewed. And then there's every likelihood that there could be a referendum in the fall. That was a hot topic yesterday. It's proven to be a hot topic again today if you want to dig back into that. Gas prices, I mean, don't get me started about gas prices. We're paying $1.84 a liter around here. And I suspect after today to pay more. I'm looking at the oil trade right now up $11.53. That's for the WTI oil contract, 111.65 US a barrel. When you look at the oil price on a chart today, it looks like the Artemis 2 rocket launch, like it's just straight up. And the oil price is up 60% in a month. Okay. So the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, called on the Carney government today to suspend all fuel taxes for the rest of the year. He did an event at a gas station in Ottawa this morning. He claimed that this would save the average driver in Canada 25 cents a liter. I mean, you want to fill up $60 tank, you're looking at $15. Who doesn't want to save $15? I'll save $15. Hey, now it would mean, as Orville pointed out from North Battleford, it means less money going to the government. $5.25 billion in lost revenue. It's always framed that way. It's lost revenue. It's not really lost. I mean, kind of know where it's going. It's going into your pocket instead of the government's. But what we want to know is what you think of this. Suspension of fuel taxes, give drivers a little break. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? You go for that? Let's get back to our phone calls today. Who is up next here, Curtis? My apologies. Who's up next? Owen. Okay, Owen in Halifax. Hi there, Owen.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, very good. I wonder what the gas price is going to be tomorrow when you wake up in Nova Scotia, though.
Yeah, probably a little bit higher.
I suspect so, yeah. What's
I
on
try
your
not
mind?
to think about it too much as I can because I got to get gas regardless. But
All right, okay.
I was thinking about, since it's an open hour kind of free-for-all, I was wondering if maybe our system of democracy could use a tweak or two.
How so?
In the sense that we vote for people to represent us in Parliament in the House of Commons. So what if there was a more intermediary way to interact with how government governs and what laws are passed and the capacity at which the government has control, and I'd like a nice in-between maybe.
Well, what's more in between than voting for a local candidate and sending them to Ottawa?
Perhaps maybe on like certain big bills or big issues have more of like a more encompassing vote that could better reflect general population.
I see. Oh, well, you're talking about having a referendum, direct democracy. Ballot, like they do in the United States. They have a ballot initiative. Is that what you're talking about? Something like that? Let's say we had an election. Let's say we had an election. I'll just use this as an example. We'll have to get in the DeLorean time machine. Let's say we go back 12 years. There's an election. And in addition to voting for candidates in the election, there are certain ballot initiatives. Maybe one of them 12 years ago would have been, do you support the legalization of marijuana? And you have a referendum on a question like that. Is that what you're talking about? Something like that?
Yeah, something so that, because maybe like the people who you vote for, you might agree on most things. But, maybe there's just some gray areas that kind of like transfer over. Or like recently I've noticed in Parliament there's been like people crossing over, and then, all of a sudden the person that you voted for to represent you now doesn't really represent you.
Like many years ago, for example, in your province in Halifax, many, many years ago now. I can't even remember what year this was. Your government had, the provincial government had a referendum, a ballot question. on Sunday shopping. Sunday shopping. Remember, all the stores in Nova Scotia used to be closed on Sunday. They weren't allowed to open, except for pharmacies and stuff, gas stations, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But big grocery stores, big box stores, they weren't allowed to have Sunday shopping. So they had a referendum. And people liked it the way it was. People voted down against opening the stores on Sunday. And then the government went ahead and did it anyway. But they ignored the results of the referendum. But I don't know what that says about the health of democracy. But is that what you were talking about, something like that?
Yeah, like maybe if we had more opportunities on things like that. Then
on big issues.
Less,
sure.
Yeah, I feel like then...
Like what if we had a referendum on, say, do you support a pipeline that goes from Alberta to Atlantic Canada? Something like that.
Yeah, that'd be it.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that would help also with like sort of some people get frustrated because they feel like they're helpless to like the way things are.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And that
that's
just kind
known
of
as
helps like bring...
There's a term for that, Owen, that you may not be familiar with. It's called direct democracy. Direct democracy. Okay. And that's what you're advocating for. You want a more direct say in some of the big issues of the day, right?
Yeah, maybe not like fully direct, if that'd be too much to handle or maintain. But maybe just like more intermediary than what we're at.
Gotcha, right. Yeah, I got you, Owen. Yeah, thank you. 1-833-668-2577. And have your say. Join the discussion. Start one of your own. That's how we roll. During the free-for-all here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Sure is. Let's go to Reza up next on Talkback. Hi, Reza.
Hi. How are you, Rob?
Hi, Reza. Yeah, I'm good. What's up?
Hey, yeah, so I try to kind of avoid conflict of interest because I live in Alberta, but because of my job, I'm part of monitoring our oil and gas industry. We have an excellent world-class industry here. They just gave $50 million in levy so government can monitor their activities. This is unique. We have this perfect industry. That's one element. The second, if even shut down the oil and gas, the global economy needs a certain barrels of oil to function. Someone else is going to produce. We are not going to kind of limit or reduce emissions by shutting down our industry. The third problem is when we have issues with car manufacturing in Ontario, government busters around, this creates jobs, we should protect it.
Yeah.
Why Americans they don't want our cars, and they're saying it. Then we have a product called oil that the world needs it, and we don't want to give it to them. Imagine if we built those pipelines when we were supposed to. We could have make billions of dollars. Like everybody in Canada would benefit, you know? This is the reason I think people are angry in West. They think they are not heard, and the policies Ottawa makes doesn't make sense. And truly, it doesn't make sense. I don't know, this is a difficult argument at what I said. I mean, I'm trying really to avoid from conflict of interest because I'm here.
No, yeah, sure.
That's all I have to say.
Well, you've said it very well. I'm just more or less nodding my head in approval, Ray. So thank you. Let's go to Red Deer then. Diane in Red Deer. Hello, Diane.
Hi, Rob. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Yeah, looking forward to the long weekend, Diane. How about you? How are you today?
Yeah, I think we could all use a break.
Yeah. What's on your mind?
So I also want to speak about Alberta independence, but I want to kind of say just a few quick points that aren't pipeline related, because it seems like that's what people are kind of, focusing on. But I don't think a lot of people actually understand all of the other underlying issues that are going on, that if you go and sit in a meeting here in one of the Stay Free Alberta meetings, you will hear a lot of information that you just aren't hearing out in the airwaves. So for one, I guess one of the issues is Confederation politics. I mean, Alberta is severely underrepresented in the Senate and in the House, and especially in the courts. And I don't want to really talk about transfer payments because I think people misunderstand what that is. It's basically all the taxes from every province going to the federal government, and then the federal government, based on a bunch of calculations, decides which provinces need to get more money than other provinces. Some provinces still get money. We still get money for healthcare and education, et cetera. But for the most part, Alberta contributes much more than we get back. So that is part of the problem. And also with pension, we are sending $9 billion because we have a young population here in pension money, and we take about $6 billion back out of that for our seniors. So there is about a $3 billion difference there. And, we don't ask for that back. That just goes in the pool for every Canadian. So, I mean, we are contributing a lot to this confederation, and I guess some people are just feeling that they're just not getting heard and we're getting dismissed. So, and then other people say, well, why don't you do something about it? Well, the problem is, to do anything about it is we have to open the Constitution. To get a different Senate representation, to get the transfer payment calculations changed, we have to open the Constitution. And in order to open the Constitution, it takes 7 of the 10 provinces to agree. Right now, 6 out of the 10 provinces are receiving a lot of money out of those transfer payments. So it's very unlikely that we're going to get 7 provinces to agree to that. And if we did, 50% of the population has to be part of those 7 provinces. So we need Quebec or Ontario to be one of those 7 provinces. So that would be difficult too. And then if that happened, we'd need the House to pass it. And then we'd need the Senate to pass it. And then even if we got that all done, Quebec has a veto. And right now, Quebec is receiving $14 billion of those transfer payments. So it's highly unlikely that Quebec is going to agree to that. So those are some of the constitutional sort of aspects of it. The other thing is we feel there's no democracy here for the West because the voting is all done, the polls are closed, and we hear who the winner is before our polls are even closed or counted. So to go through years and decades and decades and decades of feeling that we're not part of the democracy because our votes don't count. So
I understand.
That's a big thing. And then for the floor crossers to come along, well, that's just another nail in the coffin. And so it just seems to be a lot of these things. And then you have the government, blocking pipelines, putting in tanker bans, all that other stuff. So you get that on top of everything. So, and then the other thing is freedom. So some of these are small, but mind you, when you add them up, they get bigger and bigger. So first they take away your plastic straws, then they take away your bags, then they take away your firearms, then they take away your speech. And so it seems like it's one thing after the other. And so that's kind of where people get more and more upset because there's a lot more than just pipelines. And the Alberta culture is faith, family, freedom, small government, big people. That's the culture of Alberta.
Wow. You should be the spokesperson.
It's hard to get it in very quickly.
Well, you did a pretty good job there. I don't know if you're an organizer, you should be putting on a seminar. My gosh. Diane, thank you. Interesting points that you make, Diane. In Red Deer today. There you go. Dallas, hang on the line, Dallas. Get to you in Cambridge, and then we'll go back to Calgary for a few more calls. And if you want to join the discussion as well, this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And Minnow is up next on Talkback here on News Radio. Hi, Minnow.
Oh, hi, Rob.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting what you got going there. And
one question that I'd like to raise is, do you think Canadians would go for a system that controls their oil like Norway does?
What do you mean by that? Like that it would be state owned, and the money would go into a sovereign wealth fund? Is that what you mean?
Well, okay. I'll just sort of quickly explain that Norway, they own 2/3 of every oil company. The government, right?
The government, yeah.
Owns 2/3 of every oil company that exists there. Like you can set up a company, that's fine, but the government will own 2/3 of it, and they do have their own oil company as well, right? So they got into the oil. They got into the oil business, and they produced about the same amount of oil as Alberta has. But what they did when they came in, they looked at Alberta's royalty system, and they said that doesn't work. Where the oil company decides how much they will pay the government.
Okay.
You follow? Like
so I'm following you. Yeah. So what did they do instead?
Well, they put in this program, right, where the government owns the oil, not the oil company.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, do you want to nationalize the oil and gas sector in Canada?
Well, do you think if there was a referendum on that question, do you think Canadians? How do you think Canadians would vote?
No, I don't think Canadians want to nationalize the oil and gas sector.
Well,
I've never seen a poll about it. It would just be a guess for me.
Well, look at Norway. I mean, they've got trillions of dollars in the bank.
Yes.
And Alberta, we run a deficit. So
when you should have an Alberta sovereign wealth fund by now. You had your heritage fund, but then people started dipping into it. Consecutive governments started dipping into it. Imagine how much money should have been in that heritage fund by now. You know, when I was in elementary school in Nova Scotia, they used to teach us about this. This was back in the 70s. Okay. And I remember the teacher saying, you know, Alberta's got all of this oil and they have a heritage fund, and all the money that the government is collecting from all of this oil, it's going into this heritage fund because the oil is not going to be there forever. So they're going to invest it. And by the end of it, there's going to be so much money in this heritage fund. There's barely anything in the heritage fund compared to what should have been in that heritage fund by now. It's a real tragedy, you know.
Well, the thing is, Rob, what they did with the Heritage Fund, they kept taking the interest that fund was generating and put it into general revenues. So they never let it grow.
Imagine how much money you could have had if there had been more discipline with that Heritage Fund. It would be mind-boggling, really. Well, okay, thank you. But do you want to nationalize the oil and gas sector? I don't think so. And can you imagine what would the reaction be like to that? In Newfoundland, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, you know, the government is going to run the oil and gas sector. There be separation votes all over the place.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
You know, just a follow-up thought on what the last caller was pointing out, and it's been such a hot topic over the last couple of days. The Alberta independence movement, how Alberta is treated versus how Quebec is treated. That does come up from time to time in equalization, in the whole equalization debate, because there is the whole situation with how resource revenue is taken into account, because it's different for Alberta than it is for Quebec. And it goes to this whole question of nationalization. So the main driver of natural resources revenue in Quebec is, of course, Hydro-Quebec, the big electricity utility, government owned, with its $16 billion a year in revenue. But it's treated, that revenue is treated differently than oil and gas royalty revenue in Alberta, because Hydro-Quebec is government owned. It's wholly owned by the Quebec government. So it is only the dividends that Hydro-Quebec pays to the Quebec government that are included in the equalization formula. Oil and gas royalties are taxed directly, so the calculation is different. The calculation works out in Quebec's favor and not in Alberta's favor. Now, if Alberta wanted to nationalize its oil and gas industry, then the treatment might change. But I think that's a non-starter. But the question has been asked in the past: what if you took those billions and billions and billions, $16 billion in electricity revenue from Hydro-Quebec, treated it the same way as Alberta's oil and gas industry is treated? Would Quebec be considered a have-not province? In fact, the worst of all the have-nots under our equalization formula. As I always say, there's probably 6 people in the country that could answer that question, and I'm not one of them. Let's go to John in Calgary. Hello, John.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, hanging in there, John. Waiting for the Easter bunny, John.
To kind of continue on what you were just talking about, and Diane and Red Deer, she did a great job, by the way, of explaining that very well. It's part of the problem is if you look at the way our seats are allocated in a federal election, has a lot to do with it as well. So I think what Alberta needs to have a little more say at the table. For example, we have virtually the same GDP as Quebec, half the population.
You don't. No. Well, not quite. And
Quebec's 535, right?
Quebec's GDP, I was just looking this up the other day. Quebec's GDP is in excess of $600 billion. There's, 8.5 million people in Quebec right now? And the GDP, I believe the GDP of Alberta is about $450 billion. So, GDP.
I've got 400, right. I've got 473 and 535. But the way the seats are allocated, we've got less than half of what Quebec has as a say in the election. We've got virtually the same amount as the Maritimes do at 31 seats. We have 34 seats.
But Quebec has twice as many people as Alberta. I mean, we're talking about elected representation. We're talking about elected representation, right?
Right.
But elected representation.
Why don't we start doing it on a GDP basis instead of a population basis?
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Well, okay, so the Maritimes has 2 million people in the Maritimes. Am I correct?
Yes. I believe for all of Atlantic Canada, for the 4 provinces, all of Atlantic Canada, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we have 4.5 million people, yet they have 31 seats. We have 34. How does that work? There's half the population, and
well, that's a better. You're making a better case there. You are making a better case there. I will grant you that.
Well, I'm just saying it's not allocated across the way. Maybe we should start looking at a GDP calculation as opposed to a population calculation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because as Diane said, it's nothing more frustrating than when you go to vote and you come out and you're reading about who won the election in your
I understand that. Yeah, I understand that, sir. Very frustrating. Yeah. Anything else?
Good job. Love the show. I love all the opinions.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Linda on the line?
Yes. Yep.
Hi,
so
Linda.
Actually hi there. The caller before me just actually voiced exactly what is most frustrating. The transfer payments that go across and are appreciated by provinces, and I go to vote and the election's been called before we even go vote.
Right.
It's not right. It's frustrating as heck. And it gets a bit tired that there's never a voice in the West.
Is it that the election is called and the Liberals have won? Is that what's frustrating?
Oh no,
would you be happier if you were hearing the news networks and it's not that the election has been called, they're declaring a winner, they're forecasting a winner. I mean, if the Conservatives won, would you care?
No, actually, you do have a point. I'm definitely a Conservative voter. However, no, it was just frustrating this year for sure. Not even going to the ballot box, and it pretty much had been called.
Well, you felt
voiceless. There was going to be an electoral
powerless
reform
right?
10 years ago. Yeah. no voice, powerless, and the transfer payments
but
are
there is another way to look
received.
at this. And you're a conservative. I'm more of a right-of-center guy as well. Certainly was not a Trudeau fan. Okay?
No.
Here's another way to look at it. Okay? What does the conservative movement have to do in this country to win more seats in Atlantic Canada, to convince Quebecers to vote conservative, to win? Why can't the federal Conservative Party win everywhere Doug Ford is winning? Like, Doug Ford has won 3 elections as a so-called conservative premier in Ontario. And yet the same can't be said about the federal Conservative Party. You have to look at...
No, you're not wrong.
Right?
No,
what is it with
wrong.
the conservative message? I'm originally from Nova Scotia. Now, because of the one floor crossing, his name even escapes me now, D'Entremont, when he crossed the floor, that meant every single riding in Nova Scotia is Liberal. Every single one. Now, it didn't used to be that way. There are people who vote conservative in that province, right? But they wouldn't vote conservative.
Just the other thing, though, I don't agree with them being able to cross the floor without there being a by-election. And secondly, we can't get pipeline to either coast, and we don't get a vote. So why wouldn't we be frustrated?
Well, yeah, the whole pipeline thing is just a lack of federal leadership, a total abdication of federal leadership. Pipelines,
and
Mr. Poilievre is right. Pipelines are a federal responsibility. Once a pipeline crosses a boundary, a provincial boundary, the province has no say over it whatsoever. It's all in the federal domain. It's been settled at the court. This government could move ahead with a pipeline tomorrow if it wanted to. It just has to grow some you-know-what and get on with the job. Thank you for your call. I appreciate your frustration. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
George is up next on Talkback. What's on your mind, George?
Oh, great show. Thanks for having me back. Just wanted to touch base on why aren't more people up in arms and talking about floor crossers? This just astounds me. And how can that be legal? If we didn't vote for that party, but now that party's got the seat, that to me just does not make sense.
Yeah, well, I don't know, George. I mean, it's been happening since we've had a parliamentary democracy in here. It's happened hundreds and hundreds of times. And, I appreciate it if you didn't, elect a liberal, and now you have a liberal MP. I can understand the frustration, but whether it's a liberal government or conservative government, they've all done us. They've all
absolutely
crossed the floor, everything else. But I appreciate this. You feel there's a lack of, accountability, a disrespect for the voters' wishes, right?
Totally. Is it a legal move?
Oh, yeah, that's totally legal. Yeah, it's totally legal. It's totally legal.
I guess that's a rephrased question. It's legal, yes. How is it allowed to be legal? I think it's more of my question. And I don't expect that you specifically could answer that, but why aren't more people asking that question?
Well, it's basically because you're not electing necessarily a liberal or a conservative. You're electing the person, right? The individual. You're not electing the party, so to speak. You're electing the person to be your member of parliament, who happens to run under the I understand, under the banner of the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party or NDP or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we talk about it enough. I don't think it's understood well enough. We've got a lot of comments about American politics and what's going on around the world, and that's great, but that's not our politics. That doesn't impact us directly as our own does, and we should examine our own politics more than we do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you. Got it. It's just we're tight on time, and we have quite a number of people on the line here. Is it Neil up next? Neil, are you with me, Neil?
Yeah. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah. Hi, Neil. Yeah, good. Thank you, Neil. Go ahead.
So I agree with a lot of the other callers. I'm calling from Alberta as well, and I think you are correct that the government in Alberta has for a long time looked at other provinces and how they're structuring things so that they can take advantage of whatever revenues that the federal government can provide. And I think they've realized that they've been kind of slow on the uptake and not taken advantage of that. So I believe that Alberta is going to run a deficit this year. It's supposed to be $9.4 billion, but with the rise in oil prices, it's probably going to be less than that. But they have done a whole lot of investment, announced a whole lot of investment in the province, because that's what federal equalization is for all Canadians to have to receive equal services across the country. So
that's right. Yeah.
So when it comes to education and roads and all
of
that other stuff,
yeah,
Alberta typically has been very fiscally responsible, but has not been rewarded through equalization payments. So I think they will continue to run deficits, and I agree with them. They probably should. They should probably build as much stuff within this province as they can, because that appears to be what other provinces are doing. So,
sure enough, yeah.
Quebec is projecting a $14 billion deficit. Ontario, another $14 billion deficit. So they, when you look at Alberta, that's 9. That's on par with the other provinces. That's part of their game plan.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I got to run and stop here. And then we'll come back. We'll fit a few more people in before the top of the hour. So if you're on the line, hang on the line. We'll hear from you on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Abe in Champion, Alberta, the booming metropolis of Champion, Alberta. Hello, Abe. Good.
I've got some issues with your preface there to this discussion about Quebec not calculating in their revenue for the equalization program from hydroelectric production and Alberta. If they had a Crown corporation, they'd be able to. Let me tell you something, sir. Until Klein changed it, Alberta Energy Company owned as a Crown corporation. We had all of our oil and gas going through it and the sales and the income. Even then, it was calculated in our income and calculated how much money we pay, and that wasn't really it. But the point is, I don't believe for a minute that Quebec's hydroelectric income is not calculated into the equalization program. I don't like the way they calculate it because they always end up rewarding Quebec for running a lousy economy. That's my opinion. They're nothing but a bunch of damn socialists in Quebec. But having said that, no, they calculated, according to what I've read in my research, that program for equalization counts in all the money that Quebec makes, counts in all the money that Alberta makes. And also, we pay our income tax based on the money we make. And there's a heck of a lot more revenue coming to federal income tax and CPP and EI per person to the federal government from Alberta than Quebec.
Well, per person, maybe.
To Ottawa.
Okay, yeah, maybe per person. No, per person. Yeah. You have much higher incomes in Alberta than you do in Quebec, for sure.
So I'm not upset at Quebec for that. They're not doing anything wrong. What I'm upset about is that we reward provinces. Manitoba's another one. We reward provinces for not investing. Quebec's got, for example, they got a hell of a lot of natural gas. No, they're not going to touch it. Oh no, we're environmentalists.
No.
We're the woke crowd.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you can't run pipelines across our province. Oh, but you can run the pipelines to us, and we'll take your gas and oil and use it. You know, it's so damn two-faced. That's what Alberta is pissed off about. There's
I understand,
one
sir.
power in Canada, that's Central Canada. They run everything according to their rules, and the rest of us can go to hell. That's the problem.
Okay. Do you feel better now?
What?
Do you feel better now?
No, I feel terrible because I have to say stuff like this, and that you come on the radio program and feed bullshit to people.
I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Don't accuse me of that.
I heard your preface. Oh, what did you say when you prefaced this little discussion? That Quebec was paying into, and they counted Quebec's electricity that they generate through hydroelectric? You said they didn't into the equalization program. But I'll tell you right now.
This has long been a complaint. This has long been the complaint from people in Alberta that the calculation is not fair. That the Hydro-Quebec calculation for the equalization formula is different from oil and gas revenues in Alberta. That's not BS. Yeah. That's not BS.
And they treat it and the government committee that sets these rates and what they calculate as income and so on, how they do that, they take both in consideration, and both are tabulated in the income area. There is no two ways about that. I know there's a myth here in Alberta. We don't, maybe it's because, I think people everywhere have so much understanding of what goes on. But I think, to me, it's not a matter how much understanding or misunderstanding Albertans have. No, just listen. I think the problem is we're so pissed off, and we have been since 1905. You don't understand us out east. You've never cared about us, how we feel about stuff. We've got 120 years of being pissed off at Ottawa.
Okay. All right. You don't have to come on here and spew your invective at me. Okay? And don't yell at me. I'm not one of your kids, Abe. All right. But I do wish you a blessed Easter. And I hope you'll call back sometime, even though you think I'm full of it. Look, everybody, have a fabulous long weekend. If you get to take advantage of it, I hope you do. And I will be back on Tuesday. I'm Rob Snow for Curtis Giroux. This is News Radio.